basin from Ebla, a seated ruler from Katna, the famous head of Yarinlim from Alalach, the Mari wall paintings, but these images are conspicuously missing from the Middle Bronze Age palaces of Canaan, making us think that perhaps something is strange. There are very, very few images of rulers, but they belong more to Chatzor and sites that is much more closer to the Syrian milieu. And for this moment, we'll put Chatzor outside of the discussion. We may return to it later. There's another society in the Middle Bronze Age and early Late Bronze Age in which rulership or images of rulership are extremely scarce. And this is the Minoan society. And already Davis have pointed out to the problem of what she called the missing ruler. May I argue that also in Canaan we have the problem of the missing ruler throughout the Middle Bronze Age and perhaps also to the Late Bronze Age. Also there's another problem of redistributive economy. That is what may be called the cuneiform operating system, which included, everything ran on cuneiform in the ancient Near East. That is, you write letters in cuneiform, you have seals that are written in cuneiform, you have other software like the mythological and school text, like the Gilgamesh tablet, and then you have other didactic means such as the liver model found in Chatzor, and also there's other parts where these are found. However, there is a problem with this system in Canaan in the Middle Bronze Age, and we'll return to this shortly. Because in Middle Bronze Age and Late Bronze Age Canaan, in the palaces and other sites that have been excavated, after 120 years of careful archaeological excavations, there are no sites which have central storage. It's ironic that the only site which has large-scale central storage in Israel is Beit Yarach from the early Bronze Age. There are no palatial workshops, which should be one of the bases for palatial economy. There are no archives from the Middle Bronze Age to speak of, and there are no archives of the Late Bronze Age to speak of. I know somebody in the audience will say the Tanakh letters. So we have less than 20 letters from Tanakh which are connected with the Egyptian administration. And to add to this confusion, the use of seals during the Middle and most of the Late Bronze Age is mostly amuletic. That is, if somebody had a scarab in the Middle Bronze Age, it was mostly used as some form of an amulet rather than a seal in Canaan. Now, at the same time we have palaces. And we have palaces from the very beginning, or let's say immediately after the beginning of the Middle Bronze Age. You see the palaces of Megiddo, stratum 12, there was even in 13 palace. There were palaces in Afek, there was a Middle Bronze Age 2A palace at Kabri. Now the astonishing fact about the palaces that they had rulership without script. That is, the first cuneiform text that comes from the earliest palaces, let us begin with that. The earliest palaces are Afek Palace 1, Megiddo Palace 12, Kabri, and other palaces belong to the middle and late phases of the MB1, what was once called the MB2A. Something in the 18th century, it is possible that the earlier Afek palaces belong to the 19th century BC. However, they predate by at least a century and a half the earliest cuneiform text. Why is it important? To those found in Israel. Why is it important? It is important that even if you say that there are significant amount of cuneiform texts in Israel, and let me quote the total according to the catalog of Horwitz and Oshima. In the Middle Bronze Age, there's a total of 10 cuneiform documents. We're talking about a period of 450 years. 3 inscribed cylinder seals, of which all 8 are from Chatzor, meaning that 5 from all sites apart from Chatzor for 450 years. Not a lot to do effective administration. The other thing is, which is really important, is that urbanization, palace building, massive fortification, predated any form of writing, which is really interesting, and saying that something fundamental in the Canaanites was different than the other, say, neighbors of the ancient Near East. Now, there's not too much alphabet during the second millennium. There's very little of it, even to be sure. But may I say that after consulting some experts, because I know very little about this topic, none of this looks administrative. There is not a single ostracon which will say 3 goats in alphabet. Rather, it looks to be commemorative or dedication, and perhaps it's somewhat reminiscent of the earliest uses of alphabet in Greece. When you have the first one is inscription with anetheke, but this is just a thought, and it will pass many years. According to Professor Sass, the first administrative use of the alphabet will occur in the 9th century. So during the Middle Bronze Age and Late Bronze Age, they probably knew about the alphabet, but they have not used it for any administrative purposes. An interim suggestion, because I have to offer some kind of alternative to the redistributive cuneiform using system, which can be some variant of the oikos palatial economy. It was widely used to describe the Mycenaean palaces, starting with the works of Small in 1998, calling the Mycenaean palaces estates rather than states. May we perhaps, as an interim and very preliminary suggestion, look at Canaanites and Canaanite palace and Canaanite rulership as the leader of the largest estates or kinship groups within the polity, rather than running a large redistributive system assisted by administration. Now, connectivity, which we return to it now, is an adaptive strategy for risk management. When you are living in a micro region, you must disperse the risks of bad years and bad crops. Therefore, Canaanite trade began rather early in the Middle Bronze Age, flourished through the Late Bronze Age, and created what is widely used as Mediterranean small worlds. And you can see some examples of these Mediterranean small worlds, for example, in the archives of Knossos and the archives of Pylos, that you can see people coming from various parts of this Eastern Mediterranean. You have Cypriot and Alatians in Knossos as well as in Pylos. You have both Misaraios, the Egyptians, and Egyptios, the Egyptians also for Knossos, and in Knossos and a bit in Pylos, you have people that may have originated from Perita, Peritus, Tyrios, Tyre, and of course Phoenician is mentioned in several contexts, both as names of persons and both as names of commodities. Of course you have Aradios, a person from Arwad. The existence of Phoenician traders upon or not Phoenician, Canaanite traders upon the Ulubrum ship can be seen by items related to the cargo of it, such as the Canaanite drinking bowl, or Canaanite and Syrian idols. And of course, a very large part of the cargo is indeed Canaanite, as 149 amphoras full of terebinth resin are within it, with a very important study of petrography conducted by Professor Yuval Gorin of the Tel Aviv University. Now, how about tastes? Does Mediterranean taste affect Canaanite tastes? Are affected by it? And were the Canaanite missing ruler replaced by Mediterranean art? My answer is, from my myopic point of view at the excavations of Kabri, which I lead together with Professor Eric Klein, is yes. Formerly excavations by Professor Aaron Kempinski of Tel Aviv University and Professor Wolf Dietrich Niemeyer. and also our excavation have exposed Aegean style and indeed Minoan wall painting and floor painting. None of them is in something that may be called the Levantine style. So apparently these people in the 17th century made time and again the decision to choose Mediterranean art rather than ancient Near Eastern art. And the question is why? My answer is, or our interim answer is, because they wanted to belong to a Mediterranean milieu, rather than their neighbors on the other side of the Meron Massif to the east. That is, their powerful Chatzor neighbors that chose, let us belong to the ancient Near Eastern milieu. And of course it is obvious because of the mentions of Chatzor in the Maritime and vice versa. Deep-rooted Celtic traditions, I'll go over it very fast. There are Canaanites themes in Celtic traditions, the open cult places with stelae that begin with at least in the Intermediate Bronze Age, go into the Middle Bronze Age, and upon which, in the Middle Bronze Age, or the later part of the Middle Bronze Age, there is this thin veneer of Syrian cult, or a thin veneer with big cultic structures, when the stelae are supplemented or replaced by the Migdal temple, this heavy Syrian with Mesopotamian, late 3rd millennium Mesopotamian origin. Will this tradition hold when the connection to the ancient Near East holds? We'll see in 2 slides. The late Bronze Age also saw the inclusion of the Canaanites into the Egyptian system, and cuneiform was used mainly to contact with the Egyptian overlord or to run the business of the Egyptian overlords. For example, the Amarna letters, for example, the cuneiform text found within the Afek Egyptian governor residency. There is indeed a thin veneer of ancient Near Eastern rulership that one can pay some attention to it, and it's visible in ivories in both Egyptianizing and international style that are depicting rulers from, for example, Tel Achziv, more Egyptianizing, or here Megiddo ivory number 2, which is in more Syrian or international style. Now, during the collapse of the Bronze Age system, there is a total collapse of the Canaanite urban system. In Phoenicia, however, there are no evidence for a massive collapse and no indicator of destructions, whether they were destroyed or not. But Philistia, coastal Canaanite, and coastal Canaan and Israel in the 12th to 10th centuries, the ancient Near Eastern veneer seems to vanish. There is no cuneiform, there are no Syrian temples anymore, unless you want to put the elusive Solomonic temple as a Syrian temple in the 10th century. There are no palaces and there's no king imagery still. But everybody goes back to basics, like the bull site, which shows the Canaanite bull excavated by Amichai Mazow of the Iron Age one, and also back to the Matzevot, the stelae. Same thing happens on the destroyed city of Chatzor, when upon the huge temple there are sites with small Matzevot or small stelae. Connectivity does return, and it returns with force in the 11th century BC, but there is some differences between Phoenicia as well as New Canaan, or New Canaan, the term coined by Israel Finkelstein, and Philistia, and between early Israel, or Israel, whatever school you are. There is the return of international maritime trade in the 11th century, and the recreation of small words. That is, small words are being created by the Phoenicians, the Philistines, and indeed the Neo-Canaanites, but not by the Israelites. Just as an illustration, this thing that everybody have seen so many times, the famous Tekel ballpens of the 10th century, and this was never shown before. This is a Cypriot wall bracket from Achziv of the 11th century. You see the nice wool protons. So you have something connected with Cypriot religion, or something that is found in northern Israel, southern Phoenicia. Indeed, international intercultural contact led to technological transmissions in Neo-Canaan, and there's a change in behavioral patterns. You see two examples. One of them is double axes of bronze that are introduced through, no doubt, port sites, and then they are found in inland. Same goes for iron knives with ivory or wooden handles. No doubt a Cypriot manufacture, or likely a Cypriot manufacture with Aegean ancestry. Observe that the trade as influencing elite behaviors in rather early period. And perhaps a creation of small world of people that are going around with double axes and are happy because of that. Later, when you're going into the later Iron Age, you begin to find more and more script, and indeed you see the individuals that are manifesting their identity in port sites. One is I am Halios, quoted from the fantastic book of Tamar Hodos, from Tel Sukas. I am Atatos, who knows who is Atatos, if he is Greek, if he is Phrygian, if he is a mercenary, very likely, as Fantalkin would say, late 7th century, and not well known so much, unfortunately, is Le Adonimelech, a very good Phoenician site from the unpublished storeroom in Achziv. So you have all these people that are actually using alphabet in the 7th century port site to say, I am, or this belongs to me. At the same time, both Israel and Judah are facing more problems because, or part of the reason is because the venue of connectivity is either not open to them or they're reluctant to use it. There is obvious examples of literate administration in the 8th century, seeing in, for example, the famous Samaria Ostraka, and later the Lamelech system in Judah. It is likely, as there are sealings from Jerusalem of the 9th century, that this system also already begun in the 9th century. But of course, challenges posed by the Assyrian Empire have made these people be more efficient and reorganized. No wonder organize their kingdoms accordingly. Now, were these people hydrophobic? Because and this is a serious question, because there are two ways to answer it. One is the Bible, when Old Testament references to maritime trades are almost exclusively related to Phoenicians. And I expect the Bible experts to say, is it possible that these do reflect a pre-Persian period reality? I would not say. I would pose it as a question. The other thing which I would pose as a problem is the fact that despite Israelites had access in the 9th and 8th century to natural anchorages and port sites from north of Jaffa, because Jaffa was in the domain of the kingdom of Ashkelon, all the way to south of the Akko Valley, meaning basically, let's say, to the end of the Carmel Ridge, all this vast area had very nice anchorages. Some of them were already in use, some of them absolutely available, but despite the fact that the Amorite kings could build Hatzor and could build Megiddo and could build Samaria in huge detail, none of them have actually, or likely, have taken the pains to build two keys or a small anchorage to start doing business with the coast. So this is a big problem I would like to point out too. While at the same time, at the 8th and 7th century BC, the yoke of the Assyrians, or the aggressive behavior of the Assyrians towards the Tyrians, the Sidonians, etc., was perhaps gave a great boost to Phoenician colonization, not only to satisfy the hunger and thirst of the Assyrians for precious metals, but also as an adaptive strategy to not to keep all the eggs at one side. Okay, somebody could not run after all the Phoenicians to Tartessos, and you can see this flight of Luli before Sennacherib, how fantastic this is shown. And of course, Sennacherib is not immediately taking the boat and they're having a boat chase. 4 minutes? Okay, thank you very much. I'm finishing in 2. It is of course somewhat sarcastic that the worst thing that the Assyrians could do, the treaty of Esarhaddon with the king of Tyre, is saying, may Baal Shamem, the Baal of the sky, Baal Malage, Baal Saphon, raise an evil wind against your ship to undo the mooring, tear out the mooring pole. May a strong wind sink them in the sea. And may I add, because we cannot chase after you to Tartessos. And indeed, this map shows the triumph of connectivity, with small words become indeed worlds in the 8th and 7th century. And may I quote the book of Malkin at the end? He was talking about the Greeks, but may I speak about the Phoenicians? Increased volume of commerce, the founding of cities and human mobility from the 8th through the 7th centuries corresponds to a phased transition or a tipping point where local interactions lead to global emergence of the entire system, from Canaanite to Phoenicians. Thank you very much.
Assaf. We are proceeding now to the last talk of this session by Dr. Tamar Hodosh from the University of Bristol, Mediation and Multi-Directional Exchanges, the Phoenicians